A very refreshing and informative evening to all my dear friends and colleagues who have joined us for the session. On behalf of Arvachin International School and Abhyudaya Sahodaya, I extend a warm welcome to all the educators and passionate learners. In the time of pandemic, when we all confined to our homes, the new normal is work from home culture and online classes, which has become a part and parcel of our lives today. And so, as educators, it becomes our utmost responsibility to create awareness amongst the most vulnerable target for cybercrime, our students. While the teachers are struggling in the teaching phase of their journey from digital immigrants to digital natives, it is also their responsibility to make the children understand the need for cyber security. And that is the reason that we have organized this webinar. And it gives me immense pleasure to tell you that we have almost 2,000 participants from all over the world, principals and teachers who are participating in this webinar. And I would like to thank the Delhi State Judicial Services, Chadra District, for organizing this with us. I would like to welcome Sri Kavaljit Arora ji to this session. He is Member Secretary, Delhi State Legal Services Authority. Sir, we welcome you. Sir,
Thank you.
you have served as Sir Civil Judge and Metropolitan Magistrate and also Special Judge, CBI, dealing with corruption cases involving politicians and bureaucrats, besides heading civil and criminal courts at session level. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Over to you, sir, for your words of wisdom.
Thank you very much, ma'am. A very good afternoon to the organizers of this event, to Mr. Neeraj Arora, our resource person, to Madam Nair, to all principals and teachers. I do hope that in the time of this crisis, all of you must be doing well and keeping yourself and your family members safe. As a man was just saying, that no doubt this is a time of crisis. A pandemic has taken over all over the globe, and we in India and as a society, we are also facing hard times. But taking this period of crisis and converting into one of opportunity, what we had done at Delhi State Legal Service Authority, that we have started using this particular period to enhance our capacity, our capability, and we have already taken a shift from seminars to webinars as one as uh, I would like to share with you that what our authorities about, what we are doing, and why this particular authority was brought into existence. What was the need of that? That is very well, very relevant. We want to extend a helping hand to all the students. They are the future of our country, and we want them safe, not only in their personal life, but also in digital life, which is the need of the hour. Uh, all of you must be aware that we adopted our constitution in 1949, and in the preamble of our constitution, which we had given to us, uh, I would like to remind all of you that this is the document which has not been imposed on us by anyone else. It is we, the people of India, who adopted this constitution and given into our hands. This constitution, in this preamble, we had given a pledge. All of us would ensure justice, social, economic, and political, all citizens of the country. And just to make sure that we see that justice is a very basic norm of democracy in the society, in the country, then this justice has to reach to the last person. But what I feel, what is the perception of everyone, the poorer section of our society, they are not in a position to approach the courts for redressal of their grievances, for getting their rights enforced in a court of law when they are being wronged by the persons who are creating havoc on them by making them bonded laborers, by getting so many things, unwanted things done from them, or from taking over their lands and building, say, malls or whatever things on their lands. That is why a need was felt that we need to have some authority who should hold hands of these poorer sections of the society so as to provide access to justice to them. And in this particular race, in this particular, race, Article 39A was first of all incorporated in the Constitution of India in the year 1976 by virtue of 42nd Amendment. And as per this Article 39A, a mandate was given, an obligation was put on the state to bring a legislation so that a statutory right or a statutory body is created to provide access to justice to the poorer section of the society. Mahatma Gandhi once said that if all of us started following our fundamental duties, which are our moral obligations, our fundamental rights will be automatically taken care of. So this particular Article 39A imposed a positive obligation on the state to bring about a legislation, and under this particular article, state enacted Legal Services Authorities Act, and this act was enacted in the year 1987, but it came into force only in the year 1995. So under this act, legal services authorities were formed across India. At national level, we have National Legal Services Authority, and at states level, we have State Legal Service Authority, like in Delhi, Delhi State Legal Service Authority is there. Being a judicial officer, I had that authority as member secretary. Besides myself, I have two other judicial officers, one as special secretary and one as additional secretary. And in Delhi, Delhi is divided into 11 districts, and all these 11 districts, they have District Legal Service Authority, and all these District Legal Service Authority, they are manned by a judicial officer. So whatever policies we enact at state level, then these policies are, say, given effect to or executed at district level by all my secretaries. So as in Delhi, we have Delhi State Legal Service Authority. I'm given to understand that participants are from across the India. So in their states also, State Legal Services Authority exists, and the function and role of these State Legal Services Authority is to provide access to justice to the poorer, to the marginalized sections of the society. And one thing I wish to bring to your notice that as per Section 12 of Legal Services Authority Act, it prescribes the class of persons who are entitled for free legal aid and assistance. And as per this section, all women, irrespective of their income, say for example, in case Neeta Ambani comes to us and says that she requires legal assistance from us, we cannot deny legal assistance to her. So irrespective of the financial capability of or capacity of the female, she has a statutory right to get free legal aid and assistance from us. Then all children who are less than 18 years of age, so this is important for you to tell the children that all children who are less than 18 years of age, they are entitled to free legal aid and assistance. So whenever they are faced with any problem, what I feel that most of the times, if something wrong is being done to somebody and that person does not approaches the concerned authority for the purposes of redressal of his or her grievance, there are three major factors to that. Number one is that the person might be illiterate. He might not be knowing that which authority he has to approach to. Then he might not be aware of which forum to approach to, and then his impoverishment, because he feels and thinks that if I go to the police station or to the court, he might have to incur expenses. So because of his impoverishment, he thinks that, okay, let me go on with whatever wrong is being done to me. Let me bear with that because I do not want to spend money, or I do not have that much money. So all these three things, all these three hindrances, which are barrier to access to justice are removed, we are trying to remove these barriers so that all those persons against whom any wrong is being done can have access to justice. So at State Legal Service Authority, what we do is we organized awareness programs like the one which we are doing today for say cyber related issues of the children, and Mr. Neeraj Arora, he's an expert in that. So these sort of awareness programs, earlier we used to hold it say personally, physically, and now in this particular era we have switched over to webinars. Then next part is that we are providing legal assistance. We have 1,500 lawyers on our panel, and all these lawyers are of different rosters. If anybody has a matrimonial problem, if somebody has a civil problem or a criminal problem, if one is faced with a criminal trial, so we have separate roster for matrimonial cases, civil cases, criminal cases, consumer forum cases. So for all these issues, we have expert lawyers on our panel, and we provide the legal assistance to the needy free of cost. And you must know that apart from engaging a lawyer, there are other incidental expenses which erupts during the say proceeding of a particular case. So all these incidental expenses also, like typing charges or postage charges or photocopies and all that, all these incidental expenses are also being taken care of by State Legal Service Authority. A person who is in need of legal assistance, he does not have to pay any amount to the lawyer which we give him, and that person does not have to pay any court fees or typing charges or photocopy charges or postal charges. All these incidental charges are also borne by our authority. So you must know this fact, and why I am telling you is because of the fact that Delhi has a population of say about 2 crores. I'm heading this authority at state level. Besides me, as I told you, I have 2 other officers, and we have 11 districts, so 11 other officers. So in all, we are 14 officers manning this authority. Of course, we have our staff also. But with these 14 officers, we have to reach to each and every person in Delhi. It is not possible for us to physically interact with each and every person. And for that, what we require is we require our eyes, ears, and hands. And our eyes, ears, and hands are, of course, you people, because whatever I'm telling you, in case you have any problem, you must know that there is an authority in existence where I can go for redressal of my grievance and I do not have to incur any expense. We have a 24/7 helpline number, that is 1516. And apart from this, you might not be having any problem of yourself, but what I feel is that every person is associated with at least 10 other persons, if not more, at least 10 other persons. So knowing this, that there is an authority who is there to provide the necessary assistance to you, in case you come across any person who requires such sort of assistance, you can tell him that, okay, you go to that authority, and that would serve our purpose. So this is why we need our eyes, ears, and hands, and we have paralegal volunteers also with us who joins us. And these paralegal volunteers are students, and these paralegal volunteers we choose from the community as such. And in the community also, we choose from say different categories or different classes. We have teachers, we have professors, we have transgenders, we have senior citizens and women, and from all walks of life, so that those particular category or class of person who joins us as paralegal volunteer, he would be in a better position to understand the needs and requirement of his class of persons, his category of persons, so they can easily bring those persons to us for redressal of whatever their problems are. Now, so far as say coming back to students, issues of students, in the year 2012, all of you must be aware that after the Nirbhaya case, POCSO Act was enacted, and in this act, reporting of the matter was made mandatory. and it is the duty of every person to whom a child reports or tells for the first time that something wrong has happened to him or her, then that person does not have to keep that particular information to himself or herself. That person is required to report the matter to the authorities, and non-reporting is made a punishable offense. So in case any student comes to you as principal, as teacher, and confides in you that something wrong has taken place, if I'll say that, let us imagine all of us in our childhood, during the days of our childhood, if we try to remember that something wrong had happened with us, and at that time go back to those days, to those times, and try to think that who was the most reliable person with me, with whom I could have confided the thing which had taken place. So you can at best recollect one or two persons with whom you can confide, and that person can be your parents, that person can be your friend, that person can be your teacher, principal, or whatever. So similarly, children of today's age, considering the fact that now because of this pandemic situation, we are say inside our houses, we are not permitted or we are not going out. So all these things becomes more important. And apart from say physical wrong, that is interpersonal wrong, digital wrongs are being committed with the children, leading to cyber offenses. And that is why we had chosen Mr. Neeraj Arora, because he is the best person who can tell you, who can apprise you that what constitutes a cyber crime, where the line is, and immediately after crossing of this line, that come in the realms of an offense. And you should tell your students that this is the limit. Beyond this limit, you should not be indulging in all these things. In case, even if on your WhatsApp, if you have received any wrong, obscene or such message, you are not required or obliged to forward it. In case you forward it, you would also be liable for prosecution and all that. So all these things are very important. So I would not take much of the time. I would just like to tell you, and I have given you this brief background, and I just want to tell you that only in India, all these legal services authority, they are being manned by judicial officers, because it was considered important that किसी के साथ भी अगर गलत हो रहा है, जब तक वो ठीक नहीं हो जाता, जब तक वो उसके साथ किया गया गलत काम अथॉरिटीज तक रिपोर्ट नहीं हो जाता या उसको न्याय नहीं मिल जाता, तो सोसाइटी और ज्यादा डिटीरियोरेट होती है. That child, for one reason or the other, is not in a position to report the matter to the authorities. What happens? The wrongdoer, he gets encouragement, and what he will do is he'll continue doing the wrong, not only to that person, not only with that child. He will think that इसके साथ कर लिया, मेरा किसी ने क्या बिगाड़ लिया, I can do it with somebody else. So that is for the wrongdoer. But if the message goes across, then why only this wrongdoer? Other persons in the society who otherwise are good, who otherwise are fulfilling their duties, they will think that, okay, if that person can do a wrong and escape with that, so I should also be doing that. तो दूसरे लोग भी उसमें indulge होते हैं, and society as a whole gets deteriorated. And again, I'll come back to the preamble of our constitution, wherein we have taken a pledge that we will promote fraternity. और वो जो भाईचारा जब हम promote करेंगे, so we would be in a position to give ourselves a better society to live in. We would give ourselves a better society wherein हमें डर नहीं लगेगा जब हमारा बच्चा घर से बाहर जाएगा. अगर हम वो भाईचारा प्रमोट करेंगे, किसी के साथ अगर गलत हो रहा है, हम अगर आवाज उठाएंगे उसके लिए, तो वी वुड बी कॉन्फिडेंट कि कल को अगर हमारे साथ या हमारे बच्चे के साथ गलत होता है, तो देयर वुड बी समबडी आउटसाइड, देयर वुड बी समबडी ऑन द रोड टू प्रोटेक्ट आवर चाइल्ड आल्सो. So in a way, if all of us, जैसा मैंने कहा था, अगर हम सब अपनी ड्यूटीज ठीक तरह से फुलफिल करें, तो automatically our fundamental rights would be taken care of. So this is a moral obligation on all of us. And at State Legal Service Authority, we try not only to educate people, not only to make them aware about their rights, but also to tell them that even if someone is committing any wrong to them, they can approach us. We have a 24/7 helpline number 1516. You can approach us through that helpline number, or you can come to our district offices, which are located in every district of Delhi. And so far as other states are concerned, and in other states also, in every district they have district legal service authorities, and in states at taluka level also legal service authorities exist. So people can approach the concerned legal service authority for redressal of their grievances. So without taking much time, I would like to hear from Mr. Neeraj Arora, and would like that all our participants should benefit from his words of wisdom and should try to imbibe what he has to say to all of us. So thank you very much. God bless you all. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. You truly said that a lot of responsibility we have to shoulder today. As educators, we have so many children under our care, and we need to take care of them. And children do have knowledge, but the understanding is lacking, and awareness is somewhere there is no awareness. So once we spread awareness among the children, they will probably be able to filter the information the way it should be. Thank you so much, sir. Today's session will be conducted by Mr. Neeraj Arora, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court. We welcome you, sir. Sir is an international arbitrator and computer forensic expert with a niche in technology and cyber laws in India. He is independent director on the board of Insolvency Professional Agency of Institute of Cost Accounting of India, and also the chairperson of Monitoring Committee of IPA. Thanks for joining us, sir. Over to you for your expert guidance. We are all waiting to hear from you, sir. Welcome.
So very good evening to all of you. It's my privilege to be here, and I'm thankful to Shri Kavanjit Arora for giving me this opportunity to serve the society. So in very few words, I will say the impact of COVID-19 is that we have moved from physical world to the virtual world. But whether we have trained our children to live in the virtual world, how to play there, how to protect there, we have trained our children to live in the physical world. For example, we have trained them that when you go out of house, please shut the door, please lock the door. But whether we have told them when you have accessed the internet, you have used the email, you have accessed your online account, so you should log out properly when you shut it, when it is not required. So here I would like to share one of the interesting case. So prior to that, I'm sharing one of my PPT. So now this is a very interesting case. So this case is the perfect example what threat can be caused to us if we are sharing by virtue of the data which we are sharing in the social media. So this is a very interesting case, and the case is, if we take the example of Amitabh Bachchan, if I want to hack the account of Amitabh Bachchan, what I require? I require his personal data. And his entire personal data is available on the social media, on the internet, or otherwise in the open space. So from that particular data, I can compile few of the passwords, and by using them, I can hack his account. So the same thing has happened in this case, where what the hacker did, they collected the information of these celebrities from the social media, compiled them, created few passwords, and then using these passwords hacked into iCloud account. They stolen their personal data, then they blackmailed them. So that is the impact of the personal data which we are sharing on the social media. Now the interesting case which I want to share with you is one of the recent case, and the case is of a simple burglary, theft. And the interesting part of the case is that the thief who has stolen the property from the house, they have not only stolen, but stay into that particular house for 2 days. So when they were arrested, police asked them that how you were able to stay in that particular house for 2 days without caring whether the owner would come or not. Now you see the interesting reply which have been given by the thief, that we have created our profile on the Facebook as children. We are into the friendship with so many children, and what particularly happened in that case. So they stated that the 2 children of that particular family, they posted on the Facebook a 1 week prior that on particular day they are going to Shimla in their new branded car. So what the thief did? They also did the preparation. They also went to that house on that particular day. Again, the children posted the photograph that we are leaving for Shimla. Now the thief are into their house. When the family reached to the canal, they were enjoying pranthas, and again the children posted the photograph that we are enjoying prantha at canal. And by that time, these thieves were enjoying the prantha at their house. So, see, when you are sharing the data in a social media or in an open space, you must understand the ramification. So that's why our children who have grown in a physical medium, we need to train them how to live in the virtual medium. So basically the basic hygiene which we have trained them for the physical space, similarly we have to train them with the hygiene in the virtual space. So now come to the another case which I think everybody might have heard, one of the recent case, the case of Boys Locker Group. The case where the more photograph of the minor girls were being shared, and after that there were so many comments by the other children who were also minor, which were the sexual comments on the photograph, vulgar comments, obscene comment, and the comment regarding the rape, gang rape, body shaming. So this is one of the case which has shocked the entire society. So it has its own ramification. But in this session, I am going to discuss about the legal ramifications. So these are some of the issues which arises subsequent to this incident. What crime the group has committed?
अब देखो
So what crime has the group committed? Whether such group are legal or not. So then there were some of the issues. Pardon, there is any issue? So then some of the question which has come from the one segment of the society was whether the children who were the active, whether they would be liable, or the children who are non-active, and what would be the liability of the person who is the administrator of the group. So we are also going to cover all these sessions during this session. So first I am coming to in brief what the pornography is. So pornography means when the obscene material is being transmitted. And here one of the very important things which I would like to mention is that any person who can read, see, or hear the obscene material can file a complaint. So when we talk about the pornography, so there are 2 types of pornography. One is the child pornography, second is the adult pornography. So we will come to this. So one of the important part that anybody who can read, see, or hear the obscene material can file the complaint. So I will tell you with a very one of the judgment. So the fact of this case are that there was dispute between husband and wife was residing with her parent. Husband sent the obscene message to her wife, but before the wife could see it, father of the wife has picked the mobile and have seen the message which was obscene. He filed the complaint. Husband was arrested, sent to jail. Husband filed a quasi petition in the High Court saying that I have sent the message to my wife. My wife is not making a complaint. Who is my father-in-law to file a complaint and prosecute me. Then the court has referred to these 3 lines that anybody who can read, see or hear the matter, obscene material can file the complaint. So that means if a person is sitting on the front bench in a class and if he starts looking on a pornographic material, then anybody who can see or hear can file the complaint. Now coming to the prosecution of pornography. So under the Information Technology Act, we have 3 provisions. The first is the transmission of the obscene content, that is under section 67, for which the punishment is 3 years and it is a cognizable offence. Then to deal with the aggravated obscenity. So that means where sexually explicit material or even sexual organs are being presented into the material, then we have the another section, section 67A. Here the punishment is 5 years and the section is non-billable. Then we have the third is the child obscenity, which is one of the serious offence under the Information Technology Act 2000, and we will come to it. So now we are coming to the child pornography. What the child pornography is? So there are 3 components of the child pornography, which are as per our Information Technology Act, which are also as per our POCSO Act. Number 1, if a person communicates with the child about the sex with sexual intent, so then it is an offence of child pornography. That is the first case. Second case, when a person sends child pornographic content, whether it may be real or simulated, to any person. So here, child pornographic content is sent to the any person who may be child, who may be adult. Content may be real, content may be simulated. Third, sending pornographic data to child. So here, pornographic data may be adult, it may be child, but if it is sent to the child, again it would be an offence of child pornography. So these are the 3 categories, and in fact, if we look from any angle, it would cover every possible situation where obscene content is sent to the child or child is being used in the obscene content. Now coming to the possession of child pornographic material. So when we come to the possession of child pornographic material, it in itself, like a NDPS, like a heroin, it itself is a complete offence. If a person possesses a heroin, then it is an offence. Possession itself is an offence. Similar way, the possession of child pornographic material in itself is a complete offence. Nobody can collect it, nobody can seek it. Even if you are demanding, again it is a complete offence. Even if you are creating, downloading, and they are offence under the Information Technology Act, they are also the offence under the POCSO Act. In both the cases, these are the non-bailable offences. So in case of boys locker room case, where all children are in a particular group, so they would have the deemed possession and all are liable to be prosecuted irrespective of the fact whether they are minor or they are major. Now coming to the very interesting part, probably you might not have heard about it. Go to the Google, in the search bar, write child pornography, click on it, offence is complete. Nothing more is required to be done. Even if you may not have opened single website, offence is complete. So just browsing, surfing of child pornography is a complete offence. During this period of COVID-19, the Bombay police has registered 133 FIR only on browsing, and 30% have been arrested. Collection itself is a complete offence, whether it may be in an offline medium, whether it may be in an online medium, whether it may be through any computer activity, right? So again, it would be an offence under the Information Technology Act, Section 67B of the IT Act and Section 15 of the POCSO Act. So one of the questions which always comes to the people's mind, that when we are accessing the child pornography on the internet, who is observing us? Who is looking on us? How the police will come to know? So I would like to share one case, though we have now hundreds of such cases. Here, one lieutenant colonel of the army who was sharing some child pornographic data on the internet. When he has shared the data, when the data was moving from the router in Germany, that router intercepted, sent the information to the German police. German police given the complaint to the Interpol. Interpol given the complaint to the Indian Interpol, and this lieutenant colonel was arrested by the police. As of now, similar complaint against more than, I would say, 20,000 persons are laying with the different investigation agencies throughout the India, and even hundreds of persons have been arrested. So I will again refer to some of the similar cases. Then use of child for pornographic purpose. So if any person is using the child in a pornographic content, it may be published by any medium, whether it is a printed medium, whether it is an online medium, whether it may be through SMS, WhatsApp, website, television, internet, that would be a complete offense. It would be an offense under section 14, where the punishment is 5 years and offense is non-bailable. Only in April 2019, Kerala police, in a similar manner where the Interpol in Germany intercepted the content, the complaint was filed and more than 20 persons were arrested where they were creating the pornographic material. Now coming to the cyber stalking, so that is one of the very common offense as far as the children are concerned. So it may fall into the different categories. So basically, when we talk about the cyber stalking, it means harassing a child using the electronic medium. It may include false accusation, it may be defamation, it may be by way of slander or libel. So then there are the 5 different categories which I have referred: monitoring the activities of the child online, identity theft, creating the fake profile of the child, vandalism, solicitation for sex, gathering information for threatening or blackmailing. So these are some of the categories in which the cyber stalking may fall, and there may be more categories for the cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is now being used as a weapon for the purpose of damaging the reputation of the victim. It may be done for the purpose of revenge, hate, or retribution. So these are some of the categories, but number of the categories may increase depending upon the modus operandi, depending upon the motive. So this is an offense under section 11 of the POCSO. So section 11 of the POCSO says whoever repeatedly or constantly follows or watches or contacts a child through digital medium with a sexual intent, then it would be an offense. But still there may be so many cases where there may not be any sexual intent, particularly when it is being done between the children itself. So in that cases, we may not have any remedy in the law, but that can be exercised by way of the policy of the school, and I will come to that in my last slide, how the school can control that type of nuisance between the children. Then under section 354D IPC, we have the remedy for cyber stalking, but that is only for the female child, not for the male child. Now coming to the cyber bullying, so both are the similar terms, cyber stalking as well as the cyber bullying. So here also the cyber bullying, when we talk about the cyber bullying, then we are referring to intentionally intimidate, offend, threaten, or embrace a child or group of children. So it may relate to their body shaping, family background, race, caste, place of origin, name calling, or dressing sense. So we have few provisions under the IPC section 506, which can be used whenever there is any threatening, and 509 IPC we can use in case of the girl child. But again, I am coming to the same thing, that for cyber bullying, we do not have the much remedies under the law, but by way of the policy, by way of creating an acceptance usage policy, which could be signed by the parent of the child, and child is also being made a party to it. an effective mechanism can be created by the school to control the bullying. Now we are coming to the creation of child pornography. So creation of the child pornography itself is a complete offense. So it may be creation of the text material, it may be the creation of the images, video, and even all the person who are providing the photographic facility for such purpose are liable to be prosecuted. And the burden is on them to inform the police. Like Shri Kaunjit Arora has mentioned that particularly in case of child pornography, under the POCSO Act, there is a burden on every person who come to know about any offense relating to child pornography. He has to make a complaint. If he does not make the complaint, he is liable to be prosecuted. So reporting offense, so that is the section 19 under which it has to be reported. And very interesting thing here I would like to add is that it has to be informed the moment the information is received. So recently there are two cases, I think more than two cases also, but there are two specific cases where the child has reported to the school, school started making its own inquiry, and when the matter goes to the went to the court, court has held that the school even do not have any power to make any inquiry, and they have prosecuted the principal of the school. Now I am coming to the other offences under the IT Act. First, accessing any computer without permission itself is a complete offense. For example, if there is a computer into your office, a person comes from outside, access the computer, offense is complete, nothing more is to be done. And IT Act provides two remedies. Number one, criminal prosecution, and number two, damages. So damages has to be claimed before the adjudicating officer. Then theft of data. If a person download, copy or extract any data without permission, so that is another offense. Third, now this is the important one, because now what is happening? Nobody is going to steal your data by accessing your computer or mobile. What they are doing? They are installing the spyware into your mobile, either by sending through email or by sending through web link, and then they are able to get a control of your mobile or computer and steal the data. So that's why now under the IT Act, if a person installs spyware, that itself is a complete offense. Disrupting the computer network. It's very simple. In your school, you have a computer network. A person disrupts the network. And how the disruption can be caused? Number of it. Simply disconnection of wire, altering the setting in a DHCP table, or altering the setting in the router. So these are also the complete offense. Damaging any computer source. And here the meaning of damage is not the physical one. Here the meaning of the damage is the virtual one. So if any person delete, destroy any data, software, database, then he is liable to be prosecuted under this clause. Denial of access. So particularly this is more prevalent among the children, where a person steals the password, and it may be the password of your standalone computer, your server, your online bank account, your email account. So any theft of password would fall under this category. Then if you use the account of any other person, if you use a stolen credit card, so simple thing is that I use the account of another person and I get the benefit in my favor. So that is one of the category which would be under clause H. Then possession of stolen data. If a person is in possession of stolen mobile, stolen data, stolen software, stolen laptop, so anything relating to the computer, then it would be a complete offense under section 66B, which is cognizable, and punishment is 3 years. Now coming to this section, it is very important from the angle of the children, because this section says that if you use the personal information of another person and create an account, it is a standalone offense. Nothing more is required to be done. So for example, if I have used the name of another person, his photograph, and created any account on email or offline or online in any way, then it would be an offense under section 66C. And here important thing is mere creation of an account is a complete offense. So another way to look upon it is, you take the example of phishing mail. When you get a phishing mail that you have got a lottery or mail coming from the bank, then that mail is by way of impersonation, because the person who is sending the mail you is representing himself to be something, some authority, which in fact he is not. So all phishing mail would fall into this category. So whenever you receive any phishing mail, you can file a complaint with the police, and it is a cognizable offense. And here I would like to add one thing. Simply getting a phishing mail itself is a complete offense. It is not required that you have to pay something or you need to have some wrongful loss to file a complaint. But what if some loss is caused to you? Then we have another provision, section 66D. So that means I got a phishing mail. In persuasion of phishing mail, I have given my OTP. I have paid some money. So then it would be clause section 66D. Again, it is a cognizable offense, and complaint can directly be lodged with the police, and police is bound to register the FIR. Then we have another provision for video voice. So that is another very effective tool. So it simply says, if a person takes a photograph, publish it or transmit it. Photograph should be of the private area. Private area means the naked or undergarment clad genital, pubic area, buttocks or female breast. Now there are two requirements. One, that it should be done at a place where one should be, where one can disrobe in privacy. For example, if a person installs spyware in a toilet, in a hotel room, in a clothes changing store, so that means where a person expects a privacy and some device have been installed to take the photograph, then it would refer to that particular category. Now we are coming to the privacy of the personal data. So when we come to the personal data, so there are three types of data. One is the personal, medical, and financial. And under the Information Technology Act, we have the two categories. One is for personal, second is for the sensitive personal data. So your medical data and financial data constitute your sensitive personal data. So in the foreign country, particularly in the US, the value of the stolen medical data is 10 times more than the financial data. So whenever we go on the internet, when the question regarding the personal data comes, so they are covered by the privacy policy. And when we create any account, the first thing every website, every social media tell us to do is to say, I agree to privacy policy. And I can say with certainty that 99.99% people do not read the privacy policy. We always talk about the protection of the personal data, but the irony is that we never read the privacy policy, right? In the privacy policy, it is always mentioned how that particular website or that particular application is going to use your data, to what extent they can collect, preserve, use, and what are the security they are required to provide to your personal data. So that's very important, that whenever we should create any account, at least we must read the privacy policy. We should know what data they are collecting and for which purpose. So all the applications are collecting the data. So here I would like to share one of the recent judgment of Delhi High Court. What happened when WhatsApp was launched in 2009? So every person downloaded the application, clicked on I agree, and it was installed. At that time, the privacy policy of WhatsApp was that we are collecting your data and we will not share with anyone. In 2013, the WhatsApp was taken over by the Facebook. Then again, new privacy policy has come, and again everybody without reading clicked I agree, and it was installed, but one person went to the High Court. He has filed a writ petition saying that WhatsApp should be directed not to share personal data with Facebook. Now, when it was the turn of the WhatsApp to reply, WhatsApp has given a very interesting reply. In the court, WhatsApp has stated, Mr. You want to use our application? Then say I agree. If you do not want to use, remove it. So one of the biggest challenge which is before the entire society is that we always talk about the privacy policy, agreement between the user and the website, but whether the user has any bargaining power with the website, so the answer is no. So that is one of the challenge before the society. That's why in the last 5 years, all the laws on personal data has undergone a drastic change. So now we have a GDPR, and on the same line, the new act have been new bill has come, but still it is to be passed by the Parliament. The moment new bill, the Personal Data Protection Bill 2019, the moment it is passed, again we have a law relating similar to the GDPR, where there would be a data protection authority which would deal with these websites and would have a platform to bargain on behalf of the society collectively. Now coming to the another very important provision under the IT Act, Section 72 of the Information Technology Act, which gives you a very abundance, I would say, it gives you a good power to prosecute the entity who has taken the data but has not protected it. So I give you one of the best examples for it. When you get a call from the bank, from a person that I'm speaking from your bank and he is asking for the OTP, and we know that bank never share the password and nobody could ask for the OTP. So basically that person cheats you, take the OTP and transfer the money from your account. But the question which is more bigger than that, which is more serious than that, is how that person comes to know about your account and the balance into your bank account. So the only answer is only from the bank. There is no other way. So under Section 72A, you can prosecute the bank. How you have given my data to a third person. So that is the power you are having. And the biggest gap is that we are not prosecuting the banks. We are not prosecuting the entities who are sharing our data. So that is one of the very important provisions which you must use, and you can use it against any entity who has collected your personal data. So now coming to, in case of offences relating to the child who can file the complaint, any person can file the complaint. Rather than if we talk about the POCSO, if we talk about the child pornography, then every person has an obligation under Section 19 to inform to the police. So any person can file the complaint. It may be the child himself, it may be the parent, it may be the representative from school, a representative of the media, photographic facility, hotel, club, any entity who come to know about it. Now the question is where you can file the complaint. You can file the complaint with the SHO, you can file the complaint with Special Juvenile Unit. Then now recently the Government of India has come with a created a online portal where you can go and you can file your complaint online. So that is one of the very beautiful mechanism which have been created now, where there is a body which is pursuing the complaint with local police. They are supervising what is the action being taken by the local police. So I think that is one of the best platforms which you can use as of now, particularly when you are living in a virtual space. Now coming to the what should be the action plan for the school to protect the interests of the children. The first is that the school should implement the technical and social monitoring mechanism. and it can be divided into two parts. One, the limiting, preventive one. For example, the school has put firewall to block the website. So that would be your limiting one. Monitoring is where you have installed CCTV camera, you have installed spyware into your computer so that you can know that if somebody is doing something illegal or violating some of the laws or affecting the children in any illegal manner. Now coming to the second and another very important thing is acceptance usage policies, because when we come to the children, so there are so many issues relating to the use of computer, its misuse, cyberbullying, cyber stalking, or pornography. See, I would say for at least for 80% of the situation, you may not have particular legal remedy before the police, or you may not be willing to go because of the one or another reason, particularly except the child pornography where you do not have any choice. So how to protect your interest of the parent and interest of the children? So acceptance usage policy is the one mechanism which have been developed by the various schools, particularly in the United States of America, where they have compiled all the clauses which put the burden on the parent what they need to do. And on behalf of the child, the undertaking has to be given by the parent. So if child commit any violation, any nuisance, so then they have a power, they have the remedies which are given into the acceptance usage policy, and action can be taken against the children or their parents similar to the disciplinary policy, because that's the only way to do it. Now coming to third thing, how the school should protect its own interest. So that's very important, because recently I have compiled around more than 10 cases where the principal or headmaster of the school have been prosecuted, right? And the orders are very harsh against them. So school need to put their compliance mechanism, which should be divided into three parts. One is the technical compliance. So you have to put the technical compliance by virtue of the compliance in your server, mapping it with the firewall and also into the individual computer. So you can have a policy where you can have a filtering mechanism, you can have a monitoring mechanism, and you have to create a proper technical mechanism so that you will be able to restrict. That is the one part. Secondly, monitor. Third, once you come to know, then you would have the enough material for reporting. Second is the legal compliance, because the IT Act says that if any offence is done under the Information Technology Act, for example, if it is done under Section 67B of the IT Act, then every person who is in charge is liable to be prosecuted. So the impact is that every person who is the director, every person who is the principal, vice principal, who have the knowledge about that particular offence is liable to be prosecuted. And one of the biggest challenges is that the burden is on the school, these persons, to prove that they are not liable. So that's very, it's a very serious section as far as the liability is concerned, because this is the only provision under the criminal law which provides for the static liability. So that's why legal compliance mechanism has to be created. How the information from the bottom to the highest level would flow and how the complaint would be filed. Because then what would happen? If there is a lapse, there is a gap, responsibility can be fixed and the entire management may defend themselves from the prosecution. So do and do not for the parents. So there are so many things similar to what we have discussed: limiting provision, monitoring provision, preventive or detective one. So parental control setting on the router, that is into every house, computer user setting, parental control software into the mobile, the children control on the Netflix or other media access which can be shared by the parent so that they would come to know what they are doing, and if there is if they come to know something wrong is being done, they can control. Configuring the email of the children. So all these things are contextual. With the children who are the younger, it may be easy, but But for the children who are grown up or studying in the higher classes, it may be something which is difficult to enforce. The best way is to associate with the children on every platform where they are available, so that indirectly you can monitor them. If possible, you should have all the password of the children, whether it may be of email, whether it may be of his mobile, WhatsApp, whatever it may be. Then you need to train the children in developing the respect, sensitization towards the gender. For monitoring them, you can take the help of your friends. You can help them in selecting their own contacts, because now what is happening? On the social media, there is a competition who would have highest number of contacts. So what they are doing? Whenever any request comes, they will always accept without knowing who is the person, what is the intention of such person. So these are some of the things which the parent need to do, and I would say that because the child spends most of the time with the parent, so then it's very important to train the parent, because having known the ramification of the offences, the parent can always guide the children. Parent would monitor them, parent would restrict them. For example, if we take the case of this boys' locker room case, now all the children are going to be prosecuted. Now you see, if the children would be knowing that what would be the consequences of being part of such group, probably they would not have done these offences. For the school, again, school need to put the technical control that I have discussed in the beginning, and school need to put into place the acceptance usage policy. Then smartphone, as far as possible, should be banned into the school. If required, the mobile network jammer can be used. Action can be taken against the dissenting student. Only that power will come to you by virtue of the acceptance usage policy. So then we need to have a framework for the flow of the information, for reporting of the illegal material, right? So all these things need to be embedded into the system itself. And as I have stated in the beginning, that as we have developed the hygiene for living in the physical world, we have trained our children how to play, how to live, how to protect themselves into the physical world. We need to train our children in the similar fashion. So with this, I'm closing this my presentation, and now we can take the question from the participant.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom and so many things that we have got to know. There are a few questions which have directly come on the Q&A box. The first question that is there is, like you said, that we just click on the just agree button and we agree and download the application. So one of the participants wants to ask that, is there any other way of going to it to download that app? We have to agree to it. There's no other way. Without agreeing, we can't get that application.
Yes.
Any other resort?
Yeah, as I've discussed also, that in the under the present IT Act, the only way is to go on the terms and condition by virtue of the agreement between the parties. But when you download the application, every application asks for the permission. So permission to access the contact, photograph, images, video, etc. So we should always restrict our permission to the minimum level which is required. And even if for particular occasion or for a particular transaction we have to give the permission, then the moment our work is over, we should again withdraw the permission. That we can always do. So that's the only way to handle this.
Okay. The second question comes from a teacher which says that, what is cyber security in normal terms, in layman language, and how to explain it to the children, and how can we protect ourselves from cyber crime? Cyber security, how to explain what is cyber security to the children, and how to protect ourselves from cyber crime.
See, there is only one way to secure, not only for the children, but for the elder and also for the expert. So there is a one interesting case. If you go on the net, there is a case of phony hacking. And that's a very interesting case, because of which there was a warlike situation between North Korea and US. And the reason was that one of the employees clicked on the phishing mail, downloaded the attachment, and because of which the entire Sony company was hacked. So then there is a fundamental principle. There is only one principle of cybersecurity, that no firewall, IDS, IPS can protect you, and the only way is by way of the education, training, and awareness. So basically, you have to create a curriculum to train the children for the cyber security. And the simple definition of the cyber security is to secure in the cyberspace. So when you are handling the online medium, you need to know how to secure yourself. And the only way is by virtue of the training.
Thank you, sir. The next question says that since we are taking online classes now and children are glued to the screen, so the first question comes at whether mobile or laptop, which one is a better option to be used for online classes? One. And second, should we purchase an antivirus software when Microsoft Defender is already in the system?
See, first thing is you need to use the device which is the latest one, which has the good camera, which has the good communication platform. So you can use both of them. There is no issue with any of the device. Mobile is comparatively more secure because mobiles are mostly based on the Linux platform, and installing the spyware in the mobile is comparatively difficult as compared to the computer. And when you have a Windows Defender, I think you are not required to have any other antivirus. So that is a very good antivirus, but you need to update it. So that is more important. So here I would refer that only 3 things you need to keep in mind always. Number 1, do not download any attachment either on your mobile or computer which you do not know, which is coming from unknown source. As far as the mobile are concerned, when you receive any message in WhatsApp or otherwise, please do not click on any web link. So that's the way how the hacker are sending the spyware. So these things you need to keep in mind. So then you would be protected from, I can say, at least from 98% of the offenses you are protected.
Okay. So there is another question. Since all our teachers and principals here, we are forced to take online assessment these days. And teachers say that children cheat while they are having online assessment. So is there any way of, of avoiding this cheating, and in order to check children, keep a check on the children that they don't cheat during the online assessment?
See, if they are taking some help which is beyond the reach of your camera, nobody can do anything.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I hand over the session to Mrs. Veena Mishra, I would like to tell the participants that there is a form, feedback form available in the Q&A box. You're required to fill the form for the certificates. That will enable you to get the certificates for the session. I would now request Mrs. Veena Mishra, Principal, National Victor School, a very dynamic and passionate educator, to take over the remaining question answer session. Welcome.
Good evening, one and all present here. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Sir, it was a very informative session when we were talking to you. Only the one very practical problem what nowadays we are facing is that while teachers are taking virtual classes, they are using all the means like Microsoft Teams, Google Duo, Zoom and all those things. So the practical problem which is faced by the teacher is that there are, if we see almost in all the media what we are using, the social media, there are some loopholes, or we may not know what exactly how to go about that, or we were not aware. So what the major problems nowadays we are facing, that children are sharing a lot of I should say wrong videos. So since they are not on the screen, it is very tough to catch who has done that. So is there any way, suppose I am taking a class on Zoom, okay, so all the participants, what happens that they create their fake ID, they enter into that, and then they run the things. So once the things are run, then they are in the control of the teacher to stop. But the damage for the second is done. So is there any way to catch hold on those people who are doing this?
See, I have already discussed that one thing you can have a acceptance usage policy, right?
Okay.
If anybody violates, the action can be taken. Another and the best mechanism which I found is to aware the children that if you are doing something wrong, then these are the probable consequences. That even I have discussed in the beginning that even in case of boys locker room case, if these children would be knowing that the consequences are such that we have to go to the jail, and particularly in case of child pornographic offences, if you are charged with such a offence, probably no country will give you the visa and no good company will ever give you a job. So if we are able to tell them in a very simple word, rather than telling the section or something, what are the probable consequences, I tell you that even 60 to 70% issue would be resolved in the beginning itself. And for the remaining, you may need to take some action, which you can take in the form of your disciplinary policy or by way of the acceptance usage policy. So I think we can have a very simple mechanism for enforcing the same.
Okay, sir. Sir, in that case, as the teachers, as the principal, as the educator, when these type of things happens, what is your opinion? Should we go and punish the child as if we have discussed during this thing? Yes, if we punish to one, then others will learn that this is the thing. Or should we forgive that the child was not known or unknowingly has been done? So here, what is the role of a principal? Do we need to punish the child or do we need to forgive?
See, punishing may be done in a number of ways. For example, if there is a acceptance usage policy which is signed by the parent, moment something happen, you give a notice to the parent and ask for the explanation. So it will create a pressure. Then based on the circumstances, you can see that whether you need to punish or whether you need to warn or whether it is a first violation, you can let it go. And accordingly, it will create a pressure at least to that extent that the child will not do it again. Or their parent would also start monitoring it. So we need to create such a mechanism which rather would create a, which would, I would say, would be a sort of a preventive mechanism.
Sir, thank you so much, Jen. Yeah.
I would just like to add what Mr. Neeraj Arora has said, that in this IT Act, as he has rightly said, that we are at a stage of creating awareness amongst the children as such. So you know that something wrong has been done by somebody, and as you said that you yourself are not knowing that which children did that. Fine. But we have to educate and tell the children that there are mechanisms by which the investigating agency would be in a position to find out that who did that.
Okay. Okay.
This particular thing, which a child is having in his mind, that probably will not get caught, that encourages him to do these things. So if we create an awareness that there is an mechanism with the investigating agencies, if the matter is reported to them, that and to be punished. So probably I'll say 90% of the children, they will restrict themselves, and then you have to educate the parent, and parents have to take that responsibility, own up that responsibility, and that agreement. They have to own up that responsibility. But basically, is responsibility of all of us to create such an environment, create awareness to all these children that here is the line. Do not cross this line. The moment you cross it, you will get. So, Mr. Neeraj has rightly said, it is for you to decide at this particular stage should be the form of punishment. You put the matter to the police, the matter is that grave, or child of the repeatedly doing such thing, or he can simply be warned or if this parent can and if they have such that from now onwards won't indulge in such activities. So that I think is more than sufficient. Unless and until, of course, the matter goes into the realms of that POCSO Act, something that's done, then you have no other option but to depart.
Thank you so much, sir. There are a few questions in the Q&A box also, which we would like to ask you, sir. One of the participants has asked that many a times it has happened, if we unsubscribe a particular website in email, then also we should keep receiving mails that are from the same person or the company. What to do in that case?
See, you have the way to block it, and also if you are receiving the unwarranted mail, you can first file the complaint with the administrator of the company, and if still it does not stop, you can file the complaint with the police also.
Okay. The next question is, what should be done if my Facebook account gets hacked?
I did not get it. Please, can you repeat the question?
What should be done if my Facebook account gets hacked?
So I have explained that we have a section 66C of the Information Technology Act which is applicable, and even after hacking, if there is any misuse, then further section would also be applicable. So there are three ways to deal with this issue. Number one, you should file the immediate complaint with the administrator, right? So you will see that in a number of cases the administrator would help you. Second is there is a automated mechanism on the Facebook to recover your account. Third is you should file the complaint with the police, but you must you must preserve the relevant evidence. So what you can do, you can take the screenshot, you can preserve them, and if you have any other evidence, you must preserve them so that you can prosecute the offender.
Okay. Sir, one of the participants says that how can we save our financial data as we are using maximum digital money?
See, I think, I have told you that when we are using the financial data, we must be very clear about the website, its domain name, that it is a genuine one. So that is the one way to protect, because now what is happening? The first target of the offender is to collect your personal data. And until we share the data, they cannot get it. So what we have to see the authenticity of the website, and secondly, that we should not keep the data into our mobile. For example, if we are using some application for the financial transaction, so moment that we have done the financial transaction, we can log out of it. So then there would be no misuse. So we can protect all our application by way of the password.
Also, there's a question that since it is being said that the Zoom is not a very safe site to be used, a platform to be used, how can we use Zoom securely?
See, with the main issue with the Zoom is that its server is into China, and there are allegations that the personal data may have been misappropriated, or whatever you are doing on the Zoom, it may be monitored. See, for that purpose only, the thing I would say, when you are doing something which involves your sensitive data, then to protect yourself, it is better not to use the Zoom or any other mechanism. But when you are only using it for the purpose of education, and there is no such material which is sensitive one, then I think you would not have any issue while using the Zoom.
Sir, here, ma'am, may I ask
yes,
one more
yes,
question?
yes.
Sir,
sorry,
as
yes.
linked to the Zoom only, sir, as you told that, I also feel that in the field of education, since we are just imparting the knowledge and the content, so if China is also using, it's beneficial for them. Do you think that the teachers and the students, should they come on the screen from security point of view, or should not?
I don't think it would make any difference. The reason is,
okay,
every child, every adult is sharing entire data on the Facebook. I have given you the example in the beginning. So
yes,
as far as our photograph are concerned, or the minimum basic information like name, father name, that is already into public domain. You can search for any of us, it would be available.
Sir, another question is how to, like children go out quite frequently for coaching classes and all. As a parent, one person wants to know that you have to give mobile to the child every time. they are not willing to share the password with their parents. How to keep a check on them?
See, there are a number of answers to it. So the best thing is if you can make the child as a friend, so the best way is to train them, to make them aware. The other way are to install the parental control software, to install the spyware. So these are the number of the mechanism, but the best thing I would suggest that the parents should develop the friendly relation with the children, with the friend of the children. So they need to create a similar type of society, what we have in physical space, similar type of society, similar type of social bonding in the virtual space. Then you would be aware about everything what the child is doing. Because with the children who are grown up, they may not share the password. They will not allow you to install any parental control software, any spyware. So the best way is to make them friends and their friend also as a friend. That's the only way.
Sir, kindly tell us. Yes, ma'am.
One more question from sir. Sir, since in the beginning you have told that you have that volunteers and all those things. So how can what is the process of selection of student volunteers?
See, ma'am, all legal services authority, we have paralegal volunteers, and we use the services of these paralegal volunteers for so many things, for say awareness programs, and we generally hold camps for the purposes of say these workers working in unorganized sectors, construction workers also. They require so many forms to be filled for the purposes of availing the benefit of various beneficial schemes. So we engage all these paralegal volunteers for all these purposes. Besides that, we are having Lok Adalats, and while organizing Lok Adalats, we also require assistance of these paralegal volunteers. Now, how we choose these paralegal volunteers? So we invite applications. We write it on our website, inviting anyone who is willing to join us as a paralegal volunteer. After getting the applications, then we give them 3 days training, and thereafter we issue a particular certificate and identity card, and that identity card remains valid for 1 year. And during this 1 year, it depends upon the activity which they perform for the authority, that whether the same is to be extended or not. And for all these, whenever they are engaged, we pay them also. Recently, there is a judgment from Honorable High Court. As per that judgment, we need to have one paralegal volunteer round the clock in every police station of Delhi. And that is for the benefit of all the complainants. Initially, it was for the benefit of those complainants who are coming in the police station for lodging complaints with respect to missing children. Now, this particular service of paralegal volunteers can be availed for facilitating the complainants, because at times it becomes difficult for the complainant to lodge the FIR with the police. Police, many a times, they resist in registering the FIR. So our paralegal volunteer would be there to assist that person. So mostly these paralegal volunteers are law students or students from different colleges. We do not, as of now, we do not have school students as paralegal volunteers, but people from the community, parents, they are welcome. And from different categories, people can apply to us directly through our notice on the website or through any NGO. And thereafter, we impart them 3 days training and engage them as our paralegal volunteers.
Thank you so much, sir. Very informative. Thank you so much. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, there's this question that kindly tell us some good antivirus for mobile phones and iPads. Sir.
See, for mobile phone, I don't think you require any antivirus because it is a Linux-based system. So you do not require any antivirus as far as the mobile is concerned. For the Windows, you have a Window Defender that is already installed with the operating system itself, and I would say that is a very good antivirus. And Windows is delivering best of the application. The only challenge is that you must update it regularly.
So there's another question from a computer department teacher. that I'm handling the school Facebook account and it has been blocked. Even after providing authentic documents, not able to recover the school account. Why? What does the how is it blocked and how can I recover it?
See, that information you can only get from the Facebook. They have a total policy there. There in the policy it is mentioned what are the ground for blocking. So there might be some violation and you have to see what is the specific violation and you have to sort it out. And I think Facebook will cooperate on that part. Normally they do not block it easily and they will unblock it. Only they will, if you will give the more authentic information to authenticate yourself. For example, if you are sharing your mobile number or you are sharing a proper email ID, so then normally they will not block it. I don't foresee any issue into it. So if you have any specific issue, you can always contact me. I can help you in recovering the account. I can also deploy my technical team who can always assist.
Okay. So there's one last question because I hope that we've taken all the questions. If Mrs. Mishra doesn't have a question, can I ask?
Yeah, ma'am, I have one last question, sir. You have discussed and we all are aware about that what happening in bias locker rooms. So it's just a question is this, that who is to blame? Social media user or the admin?
Society. Because there is ample material which is a pornographic. So one point which I would like to add, and instead I will request Shri Kamaljeet Arora to do something on that part. See, every website which is publishing the pornographic material, whether it is adult pornography, whether it is a child pornography, it is a complete offense on which suo motu action can be taken. In foreign country, there are mechanisms. In number of countries, there are mechanisms by which they are dividing all the websites into two parts, white and black, and then all the black websites are being blocked. In India, I would say that our government is not doing enough, but still government is not doing, so we can look to the judiciary to do something on that part.
Definitely, thank you for that. And I would just like to tell you that we are working on that, on this particular issue. And in case our government, and I do not believe that our government is going to do anything in this regard in the near future, we are going to file a PIL before High Court, and let's see that if something positive comes out of that.
So one more question that has come. A teacher says that a child has created an Insta account of the school. So how to know about it and where to file a case?
It is a simple case of impersonation, and even you can file the police complaint. But I would always recommend, in case of children, try to explore some mechanism, right, by which the matter can also be sorted out, and some pressure can be created on the children that they do not repeat with such thing. And in some of the case, to set up an example, a complaint can be filed with the police to take the action, so that nobody then again would commit the similar type of offense.
Sir, but how to get to know? How does one get to know that who's the one who has created that account? That's what the teacher
that would be only by the police, because you can only, when you will file the complaint with the police will collect the IP address. Only from the IP address you come to know. That's the only way to do it.
So very rightly, ma'am, very right question ma'am has asked, because sometimes in a school what happens is it is not done by the school children, it is done by the external, the other school children. They do this all mischievous things by creating the wrong data and all those. But for us, as you told, that children are children. Yes. They all need our guidance. Yes, what is right and what. And sir, you were very right that we are getting lots many porn websites through children. They in their notebooks on the blackboard. When we try to open that, what exactly is written, and we get the material. So
and we are equally liable, because we have not trained our children how to live in a virtual world.
Yes, yes, sir. You are very right. Very right. Yes, we are. And in our upbringing, in our society, in our culture, being a parent and being a teacher, yes, we generally do not talk openly on these issues. That how these porn sites and all those are wrong for them and for ourselves.
True, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Neeraj sir and Kamaljeet sir, for this beautiful, enriching session. We have had so many participants, and I hope we have been able to answer a lot of questions which were there in the mind of the educators. I would like to once again thank DLSA for organizing such a beautiful session. Sir, this is the second session that we are holding with you. The first was on protection of children against sexual offences, and this is the second one. And I hope that we are using our lockdown period for better. And the best investment is to invest in knowledge. And that is what we are doing. Thank you, Neeraj sir. Thank you so much. Very obliged. Such a beautiful session, sir. Looking forward for more sessions with you. Thank you so
It's my
much. And thank you, Mrs. Mishra. It was great connecting with you. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all the participants for being with us. Thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe. Stay home. Thank you.